Hello champions and future champions, hello ChessMood family. I'm Grandmaster Avetik Grigorian and today we'll speak about Colorado Gambit. I will show you the ideas of this gambit, the traps, the downsides, and then how to counter it if you face this gambit for white. Let's go everything step by step. So let's start from the very beginning. We play e4, black plays knight c6. This is a called Nimzovich Defense. About this we have an article and also a course. You can find the links in the description part. We play here knight f3. This is the move I recommended you to keep playing, because if you play d4, black plays d5, and this is a totally different theory. But if you play knight f3, you force opponent to go to one of your openings. If e5, you can play d4 if you are a ChessMood member, or bishop b5, Rui Lopez, or bishop c4, Italian, whatever you like to do. If after e4, knight c6, knight f3, black plays d5, we go to Scandinavian. After e5, queen d5, and black plays knight c6, there is no more c6. This also we have covered in the courses. Again, the link you can find in the description part. And here the main move that Nimzovich Defense players plays here is d6. So they try to delay the e5 move and at some point play bishop g4, trying to pin the f3 knight, and this way fight for the central squares. And after knight c6, knight f3, so these are the main moves, d6 and e5. There is also this f5 move, which calls Colorado Gambit. Let's look at the board and figure it out black's ideas. With f5 move, black will try to remove from the game f5 and e4 pawns. And if they successfully do that, what will happen? Now they exchange their f7 pawn with our e2 central pawn. And now we don't have any more two central pawns. We have just one, while black has two central pawns. And if they successfully play e5, d5, they will get a full center. Also, after knight f6, bishop c5, developing the pieces of the king side and then playing short castle. They will be very happy that they exchanged the f7 pawn with e2. Not just because they got here the center, but also when on the board there is not the f7 pawn, the rook on f8 is active. And actually with castling, black actually developed the rook on f8. Okay, so this is the main idea of black when they play f5. They want to remove these two pawns from the board. Here white has ef5, the main move, and e5. If white plays something like d3, it's very passive. We close the bishop on f1. This is not the way to play against gambits. Black will play e5, then bishop c5, knight f6, short castle, and here they are very good. Our bishop on f1 is limited, while black's bishop is developed on c5, putting here pressure on f2. Black is totally fine. The same way after f5, if you play knight c3, developing the knight and defending the e4 pawn. After f4, knight e4, black will play d5, opening the bishop, attacking the knight on e4. Next they will play e5, and again they will have center. So after f5, the best move for white is ef5, but there is also possible e5. If next white played d4, okay, they will get a strong center. They can even play d5, attack the c6 knight, and they will be very good. But the problem of this is that black will play d6 and attack this central pawn. Now what will happen? If you take e6 after cd6, we exchanged our e2 pawn with opponent's c7 pawn. And next move, black will play e5, and here they will have a fine pawn structure in the center. After e5, d6, if we play d4, then black will take d5. And our problem is that after d5, queen d1, we need to take king d1. And now our king in the center, we cannot castle, and in the future when black plays long castle, yeah, the rook on d8 will come here with the check. Also we might have some issues with e5 pawn. For example, black can play bishop e6, bishop d5. Have a strong bishop here, attack the defender of e5. This is complicated position, something we don't want to play. And after e5, d6, there is one trap that I see that many white players are falling there. So they play bishop b5, very logical move. The idea is that after the e5 now they can, using this pin, take knight e5. If they successfully next play short castle, rook e1, what will happen? They will have full control over e5 square and black will have a backward pawn on e7. However, after d5, knight e5, here black has a very strong move. I recommend you to pause the video and think. I want to make this lesson as interactive as possible, so please pause the video and think how black should continue here. Okay, so black plays here queen d5, very strong move. They activate the queen, attack the bishop on b5, attack the e5 knight, and also the g2 pawn. We should take on c6, bc6, and now steal our e5 knight and g2 pawn hangs. At first glance, looks like that with queen h5 we can win the game, because after g6 we can take knight g6 and use the spin. However, after knight g6, this is a trap, and after knight f6, black wins the game. If we play queen h4 or queen h3, these are the two moves we have. Otherwise, if we move back somewhere, the queen opponent will take on g6. There will not be pin anymore, right? And if you play queen h4, then black will take on g2, taking the h1 and the g6 knight. And after knight f6, if you play, after knight f6 we play queen h3, then goes queen e4 track. Now king d1 or king f1, wherever we go, it will be the same thing. Black will play f4, opening the bishop on c8, attacking the queen, and also with f4 they also open the queen on e4, and now both of our pieces hangs, we lose a piece. This is one of the traps that Colorado Gambits love to trick us. White players playing e5, d6, and after bishop b5, take queen d5. The best response for white would be to take on c6, and in order to defend both of them, the e5 knight and the g2 pawn, will be knight f3. But now black will play e5, and here we have no clear position. Because from one point of view, we ruin the opponent's pawn structure on the queen side, the opponent has weak pawns. But as a compensation, black got a bishop pair, and also they got here a very good pawn structure in the center. So, after f5, this is what happens after e5. e5 is the main move of white, after which black plays d5. Now, the next move, black want to take the f5 pawn and then play e5 and get the center. What to do for white? Before I show you the best way how to react against Colorado to give up this pawn and torture opponent positionally, let's check out what happened if we try to defend this pawn. This is something that Colorado players will love when we try to defend this pawn. For example, if we play g4, defending the f5 pawn, black will play h5, and now they ruin this pawn chain. The g4 pawn is defending of f5, and we cannot play h3 and have this pawn chain keeping, because after h3, black will take hg4, and we cannot take hg4 because of the pin. And after h5, we will lose sooner or less this f5 pawn, and then opponent rook on h8 will be also opened. With g4 we ruined our pawn structure of the king side, so g4 is not a good move. Another way to defend the f5 pawn is bishop d3, but this is not a good move, it's a very ugly move. It's kind of development, egoistic development, I would say, against the bishop on c1, because now we cannot play d3 or d4 and develop the bishop on c1, right? Also, the bishop on d3 can be attacked with knight b4. And after we move the bishop, yet the bishop was defending the f5 pawn. So something goes wrong here. Another move here is knight h4. Logical move, we defend f5 and also we want to play queen h5. But now here black has two interesting options. One is to play knight h6, attacking the f5 pawn, and after queen h5, black can play knight f7, but they can even sacrifice the second pawn, playing g6. And after fg6, hg6, black gets a very romantic chess, and if you take here knight g6, there is a trap. Black plays bishop g4, attacks the queen, and if we go queen h4, looks like that we attack the h8 rook and also f8 bishop. So after rook g8 we'll take knight f8. It's okay for us, but there is a strong move for black, which I offer you to pause the video and find it. Okay, black plays here queen d6, very strong move. Yeah, we can take h8, but opponent will give queen e6 or queen e5 check, and suddenly we get here checkmate. If bishop e2, then queen e2, over. So after knight h4, knight h6, queen h5, g6, strong move, sacrificing the second pawn, and after fg6, hg6. If you take queen g6, black plays knight f7. So actually black sacrificed the h7 pawn and opens their rook on h8. And now h4 knight hangs, so here we need to lose a tempo. Also our queen on g6 is early developed, which is not good because it can be attacked by opponent's minor pieces. Plus opponent can play e5, and they will have here a strong center. In the future black will go to long side, so this is a very fun position to play for black against two pawns. Black got here a huge game, and myself I would love to play this romantic position for black. And then another option after knight h4 that black has is e5. Now with e5 they push the pawn, go to center, and at the same time they attack the h4 knight. If you play queen h5 check, again black sacrificed the pawn playing g6. fg6, knight f6, developing a piece and attacking our queen. Looks like that we can play g7, nice check, and take on h8, promoting the queen. Right now we are rook up. However, with e5 move, black attack the h4 knight, right? So they take it. Now we are exchanging pawn up. However, black activated their three pieces. The fourth is coming after a long castle. Our queen even can be trapped, and here black gets a very romantic and again fun position to play. We can take on h7, second pawn, and not allow bishop f5, but then knight d4, a strong move. Now it's coming bishop f5, attacking the c2 pawn this way. Engine still thinks that white is better, but practically it's gonna be very annoying to play this for white. So I have a better option for you. After f5 we take ef5, black plays d5, and here we go to the downsides of Colorado Gambit. Well, the first downside is that after ef5, the first downside except of just Gambit, yeah, sacrificing this pawn, is that the black here weakens very much this h5 e8 diagonal. It would be more catastrophic if black played f5 on the first move, because now after ef5 we threatens to play queen h5 check. And if g6, fg6, after h6 we will not take the h8, but we'll take queen g6 with a checkmate. And if knight f6, now you already know how to play here for white, right? I for you to pause the video and think. Okay, g7, and after knight h5, g8, queen. So here we promoted the queen, winning the h8 rook, and we are rook up. After e4, knight c6, knight f3, f5, and we take ef5. Okay, when black included these moves, queen h5 there is not immediately, but anyway in the future black should be very careful with this queen h5 move. And the second downside is this. After d5, let's look at the position after d4, bishop f5. How do you evaluate this position? And what do you think how white should continue here? I offer you to pause the video and spend a little bit more time than in the previous cases. Okay, well now black doesn't have the f7 pawn, and there another pawn is on d5. Which means if we control the e5 square with one of our pieces, it's gonna be very annoying for black. They will not have d6 or f6 square moves, sorry. And another problem of black is that they might have e7 backward pawn. And if we control the e5 square, which means not allow opponent to play e6, bishop d6, knight f6, short castle, and somewhere to play e5, we will have here a very big advantage. What to do here? Well, here the correct strategy to play is this. We have 4 pieces fighting for e5 square, right? Opponent also has 4 pieces, no? The answer is no. The thing is that our light square bishop cannot fight for the dark square. And also, black's light square bishop cannot fight for their dark square. Which means, if we exchanged our light square bishop with opponent one of the pieces which fights for the e5 square, we will win the battle. So here we go, bishop b5. This is a very important concept for fighting for the central weak squares. You give up the bishop which cannot fight for that weak square to opponent knight. Now let's say a6, bishop c6, bc6. What will happen? We will have here 3 pieces fighting for e5 square. So the knight can fight from here, bishop can fight from here, and another knight can replace the position of the knight, right? While Black here has just 2 pieces which can fight for e5 square. The light square bishop cannot fight, so we won the battle 3 against 2. So, and now when we know the correct strategy to exchange the bishop to the knight, let's figure out what is the correct move order. So, after f5, we take ef5, d5. Now we can play d4 and then bishop b5, or immediately bishop b5. Which one is better? Well, bishop b5 move here is much better. And after bishop f5, we will not play d4, but we will play knight e5 immediately. What's the thing? Knight e5 move anyway was in our plan, to get the knight in the center and get full control over this weak square. But when we do it now, we put a very annoying pressure on c6 knight, and also we open our queen on d1, so at some places there might be queen h5 check. If we played after bishop f5, d4 and next move knight e5, black can play e6, and after knight e5 we have knight e7 move, defending the c6 this way. Now, let's look what if we do here knight e5. Yeah, you can see, there is no knight e7 anymore, and it becomes very unpleasant to defend the c6 knight. How to defend it? Actually, there are 2 ways. One is queen d6, second is bishop d7, but both are going against opening principles. Why? Because after queen d6, black will develop their queen early in the game, which usually you should not do, because opponent's minor pieces can attack your queen. So in the future, when we play d4 and bishop f4, queen will feel herself not very comfortable. And when black plays bishop d7, the bishop goes back, and they do the second move with the same piece, which again goes against opening principles. Do with each piece one move, fastly developing them. Very briefly, I will show you what we do. After queen d6, we play d4. No worries about queen b4 check, because we don't lose the bishop on b5, we have simply knight c3. And now the queen is not on d6 and is not defending the c6 knight. After d4, what we do next? We go short castle and then bishop f4. There is no queen b4 check, and we will threaten different annoying moves against this queen on d6. And after knight e5, if black plays bishop d7, looks like there is queen h5 check, but this is become some complications after queen h5. Very briefly, I will show you more you can find in the course. The link you can find in the description part of the video. And after g6, knight g6, black plays knight f6, taking the queen. And after we move the queen, hg6, queen h8, and here they use that our queen is not on d1 and doesn't defend the c2 square. Black plays here knight b4, taking the c2 pawn. After bishop d7, queen d7, d6, queen e6 check. Very unpleasant check comes, queen f5 even is possible. At some point black plays long castle, e5, our queen is on the corner of the board. Some complications which we don't need at all. So after knight e5, bishop d7, we take on bishop c6, and next again we don't give queen h5 check, because after g6, knight g6, knight f6, we move the queen, take, and again black gets some compensation after d4 strong move. With this way they open the bishop on g2, next they are going to play queen d5, long castle, somewhere e5, move the bishop, our queen is again on the corner of the board, something not fun to play. What we do instead after bishop f5, knight e5, bishop d7, we simply take it. Bishop c6, d4. Now we won the battle over e5 square. Additionally, now we want to play queen h5, because at the end of the variations there will not be d4 move attacking the g2 pawn, because our pawn is on d4. And after knight f6 we play short castle. Our plan is going to be very simple. We are not going to exchange the knight to the bishop, because the bishop doesn't fight for e5 square, right? Why we exchange? We won already the battle, 3 against 2. Next, we play rook e1, bishop f4, knight d2, and in future start to put pressure on e7, or if black plays e6, on e6 backward pawn. There is a very big advantage. More about this you can find in the course and also in the playlist in our YouTube channel, Crashing with ChessMood Openings. You will find model games with this pawn structure. Well, do I recommend to play this opening for black? Not really. It can work if you play against 1500 below players and they don't know anything about it, and they try e5, and after d5 they try to keep the f5 pawn. But after f5, e5, if they decide to give this f5 pawn and start to torture you positionally using the e5 square, you will find yourself in big trouble. It's much better to learn a little bit more fundamental openings. If you have any questions, feel free to post in the comment section. I will try personally to answer them. Thank you for watching and improving. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel not to miss other upcoming important and useful videos, all created by Grandmasters. See you soon.